All right, welcome back to Secure World 2017, Seattle, Washington. Chuck Harold, SecurityGuideTV.com. There's all the shameless plugs. But our next guest, Eric Thompson, extrahop.com. I'm walking by your booth here, and I see, I got to interview those guys. I like that name. And then I saw this, gap analysis, and I said, oh, what a great marketing name. I mean, it's fabulous. Tell us what you guys do.
Yeah, so contrary to what you might think, we don't put an extra hop in your network to make it slower. That's not what we do. So we're actually a completely passive solution for monitoring data center and cloud environments. So we passively take a copy of all the traffic off the network.
Okay.
We reassemble it into all of the transactions that it represents, and then we analyze the application layer in real time. So we speak web and database and storage and Active Directory and DNS and Citrix, all these different protocols. We analyze for interesting stuff, whether that's kind of behavioral anomalies from a security perspective.
That's the big thing now, behavior, right?
Absolutely. It's basically real-time surveillance for everything going on in the data center. And when we say real-time, we really mean it. It's within 1 second of something happening on the network.
I'm glad you said that, because real-time, when I interview people at Black Hat, 100 people, everybody had a different definition of what real-time was.
Yeah.
I mean, to be fair. But now, my little security guy radio brain's a little confused. You did say you kind of, I don't know if you said you make a copy of what's going on and then you analyze it separately, which is great because that's faster. So is there a little lag on that because of that, or how's the technology handled?
No, we're completely out of band. Yeah.
Okay, so you're off their grid. You're just doing a separate analysis of their data. Then it kind of keeps flowing all the time.
And we use existing technologies within the customer, so like a network tap or a span port. In the cloud, it's more around virtual tapping.
Right.
So no latency imposed. We're completely out of band. You could completely shut us down, and nothing is going to change from an operational perspective.
Now that seems unique to me. I'm not a genius in this area, but I've interviewed a lot of people, and I kind of, in the back of my head, I start to understand how things work, and I don't think I've heard this methodology. Is this unique to you guys?
Yeah, we sort of invented this space.
Okay.
And the nice thing about doing a passive monitoring approach from using kind of this network data is that if something has an IP address on the network, it can't hide from us because we're seeing all the network traffic. So whether that's a compromised host, whether that's an unauthorized device, whether it is an end user that isn't obeying an Active Directory policy, one of the things that we do with this real-time stuff, we can detect ransomware within a second.
Oh,
so
good.
we see that initial infection, and we can instruct a firewall to shut down or quarantine that host.
I'm going to give you real time in 1 second is real time. I'm going to agree to that.
Okay, yeah.
I haven't heard anybody being that fast.
Yeah.
That's fantastic.
Well, I used to buy this stuff, and I would ask the question, "What do you mean by real time?" And it's like 15 minutes or 10 minutes.
Right.
Not good enough when you're talking about
true.
stopping an infection. So
now, do you find it and you stick it in a sandbox somewhere and you surround it with the code and you protect it and you say don't touch that and quarantine it, and then you pick up the phone and call the company and say, hey, we found something? Or do you have mitigation software involved that does things automatically, or do you have to work with the GSOC? How does it all work?
So we don't do the mitigation ourselves,
okay.
But one of the philosophical things about ExtraHop is it's a sort of open platform approach. So if we notice something on the network, we can integrate with any firewall that you want to integrate with. We can automatically create incident response tickets based on what we see. We have all of these mechanisms to integrate within the security workflow. One of the things for us in information security, all of our customers already have existing workflows they're comfortable with, ticketing systems, mitigations, firewalls, et cetera. We want them to be able to use all of that with this now additional capability of looking at literally everything in the environment, east, west, in real time.
Now, define the gap for me. What gap is it you're talking about? Because I have another idea of a gap I'm going to tell you about in a second.
Well, the gap from sort of the perspective of the mega trend, everyone used to think that their perimeter security was good enough, and that's where they had to focus their efforts. But then they started figuring out that an attacker would be dwelling in the environment for 4 or 5 months before anybody noticed, right? So now you sort of have to admit to yourself, sooner or later, something is going to happen within the data center, and it's all about noticing it as quickly as you possibly can and limiting sort of the blast radius or the impacts of that incident. So that's where we come along to say we're going to what you were already doing for all your ingress egress traffic for your IDS IPS stuff, we're now going to do across the entire data center. The other thing though is that we really focus on machine learning and behavioral anomalies. We don't want to do signatures, right? We want to be able to spot things.
Old news.
Old news, exactly. There's a new variant of a ransomware attack. We want to be able to, provide our customers the ability to detect that immediately with no kind of further intervention or subscription to a signature download service or whatever. It's all behavioral. Another thing about that too, the exfiltration techniques for getting data out of the data center keep evolving, right? And there's about 1 billion ways to do it. If you try to do it with signatures, you're going to miss it eventually. If you do it with behavior, you'll catch it.
So believe it or not, here's another gap. My hair used to be your color. Right? Even darker. People thought it was black, but it's really dark brown.
Sure.
Black Irish, right?
My beard is at least headed there, though.
Well,
so
there's a couple specks. It's very distinguished.
Got a little salt and pepper.
That's right, mine too. Mine's look like Santa Claus at December. That's the gap I'm talking about now, right? So I'm concerned with people my age, our decision makers. They're C-level now. I got friends of mine that are C-level guys that started in the basement that I did in the business, right? And they don't get it as well as you get it, okay? The gap I'm concerned about is the knowledge gap. The second gap I'm concerned about is the response gap. So now you got a great product, you're finding this stuff in real time, and you're sticking it into the workflow of Company A. And you know what? Company A, that was the last piece in the workflow that made the whole thing go kaboing. They just don't have enough people. There's a 1 million person shortage in the IT world right now as it is. The gap is the response gap, not from you guys. You guys solved it. It's given to the IT, and his desk is so overwhelmed. He says, "I'm going home. That's it. I'm done." How do you help them with that?
First of all, you're so right. This is a problem that's endemic to InfoSec in particular. There's the skills gap, and then there's just the, sort of human resource gap of the number of people that can do it.
Yeah,
right?
That's it, right.
So we help with that in a couple of ways. One is our machine learning service is essentially like having a 24/7 engineer, analyzing all this traffic in real time for you, and then spotting anything that you need to pay attention to. So that's thing one. Thing two is that the data that we provide applies equally to InfoSec and IT ops.
Okay.
So by sort of bringing those two teams or silos together, getting them working together on a common platform, we can kind of spread the load a little bit.
That's a good idea.
They say that security should be everyone's job.
Right.
It's not yet, right? It's not even IT's job, in a siloed environment today.
Well, it's interesting you say that those two silos inside infosecurity and cybersecurity exist. When the original silo was, I'm physical security, you're cybersecurity. Those two never talk to each other, right? And now we're finding that's happening more. But are you suggesting that maybe there's even more of a gap, what the word interdepartmental? Because I know physical and cyber have to talk, and they are talking. But maybe it's going the other way now internally. Is that kind of what's happening sometimes?
Absolutely.
Why is that? Is it lack of personnel and competition, or what is it?
A couple of things. First of all, there's some, I think, cultural baggage where in the past, security sort of viewed themselves as, the police.
Right.
And felt like they could just march into IT ops and say, you're going to do it this way or
exactly.
else.
That's what we used to do.
Right. These days, when you're talking about defense in depth, when you're talking about, making sure that you're segmenting the network properly, all these next generation sort of mitigation techniques, the solutions need to be implemented by IT ops anyway. If you're going to segment your network, if you're going to install agents, if you're going to, use extra hop even, to attach to the network, you need to be able to motivate IT ops to kind of do your bidding for you. And I think the way to do that is collaboration. One of the things that we've seen be really effective is we have InfoSec teams that use extra hop to include IT ops into like red-blue team exercises.
Oh, that's interesting.
Get them speaking the same language, get them using the same tooling, help them understand the techniques and even the stakes involved. It's a way of recruiting IT ops into information security.
What keeps Eric awake at night? What do you worry about in this biz the most? Something that just makes you go, oh, God, that's a problem.
There's so many when we're talking about information security. I think there's a basic level of technical education among, the wider workforce. We see,
I think that's the biggest problem.
It's a big one.
The lack of personnel is going to do us in.
And we see that, cyber criminals are targeting, in some cases, kind of the least technically educated people, namely finance, who coincidentally all have all the money. I was talking with a financial executive, and she was telling me the story. She said, my daughter emailed me a budget, and I was so proud of her that she had done that as a finance person. And the best part about it is she didn't use Snapchat, she didn't use WhatsApp, she used good old-fashioned email. And I was like, that's the only one that's not encrypted. Did you know that?
It's amazing that how interesting.
Yeah.
No, but that makes sense. But what's funny about that is that, they were probably using Quicken before anybody else understood that part of it. Mm-hmm. But you're right. In general, the financial people I know don't embrace technology.
So taking that a step further, we know that these breaches are going to happen for that reason.
Right.
We know that phishing is still going to work. We know that human behavior is imperfect. So what really keeps me up at night is that organizations aren't doing enough to spot these things as soon as they happen. And that average dwell time, it's gotten better, but it's still 99 days or something like that.
Really? Wow.
All this data is getting exfiltrated. It's all personal data. Some of it is mine, via the Equifax breach.
Blue Cross, yeah.
Right? So how do we motivate these organizations to want to take the right steps to mitigate this stuff and implement that defense in depth? We can help with that because we can also map out, where the defenses need to be, who's complying and who's not. But first, the organization needs to be able to, just take that step.
I love your energy.
Thank you very much.
A lot of energy. This is important for people to be passionate about this because that comes across as being legitimate. In other words, I can tell you love this stuff. You're not just selling this stuff. And if you love it and you're selling it, that's even a better combination, right? Because you make people think, you know what, he takes this stuff seriously, and we need to get on board with that. Eric Thomas, Extra Hop Networks, Inc. Now it's Extra Hop, EXTRAHOP.com. Fabulous name. I didn't see a frog in your logo, though.
No, absolutely
not. Might
not.
get confused with the Frogger back in the day.
Yeah, right. We might have to incorporate that in the logo.
Thanks for coming on Security Guide TV, Eric, at Secure World Expo 2017 in Seattle. Appreciate it. And
Chuck,
you're welcome on the
much.
show anytime you get a chance. You can Skype in from wherever you are, and we can do an update on what's going on.
Sounds great. We'd
Keep
love
us
to.
abreast on it. Thanks a lot for coming on the show.
Thanks so much.